Hey everybody, it's Shanice and
Sean.
we are Second Chance at Love. And the reason why we are Second Chance at Love, because we were married not once, but twice. So this is our second chance at love. And because some people follow us on Instagram, and we wanted to tell you our story and how we landed here today. So we met in high school. I was being stalked.
For sure. Not even knowing that I was stalking her, but for sure.
So you want to tell them a little bit about that?
Well, like I said, I came into her school in in 1992, almost 30 years ago, and instantly, just it was an attraction, and I saw her, and I fell in love with her, and pursued a relationship that I had in my head, and never knew if it would come into reality. But
Now, let's take a pause. Because really, you didn't pursue a
right,
relationship with me
for
like
sure,
that.
for sure,
You pursued me as a friend because I wasn't thinking about you.
for sure, for sure.
So break that down.
But from her perspective, I pursued her from a friend. But from the reality perspective, and I've always told her this, it was like instant love at first sight with me. I had saw her, and I was like, man, this woman gonna be my wife. She had no clue that I thought that. But the best relationships start from friendships, and we definitely developed a good friendship over that year. Strange things happened, and things brought us together in a closer sense. But it was, man, it was really amazing. Just a whole year that we went to school together, and then the summer was even better. Yeah.
So after the summer, well, wait, was it the summer that our friendship kind of grew though? Because when I seen you, you were with my brother, or you dropped my brother off.
No.
What happened? I don't know.
She invited we had after graduation. She had invited me to a barbecue that her mother was having, and she gave me the address to her barbecue. And all the while, this girl stayed 4 blocks away from me, and I never even knew that. So when she gave me this address, I'm like, man, that's right around the corner. So from that point on, I had been driving down her block every day just to see if I could see her. And then one day I drove up to her house. She didn't even know who I was. Stopped in front of her house, and I said, hey, Chat. And you look, and you like, who is that? And your friend was like, girl, who was that in that car? And you came to the car, and you was like, wait, who car is this? And that's when you first met me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had to see, back in the day, I had the mindset of cars, fast moving dudes, drug dealers. So if somebody pull up in a Mercedes Benz and they calling my name, and I'm like, who, what? Who, me? Who is that? So that's what got me to come to the car, first of all. And I'm like, dude, who car are you driving?
Right. Because I was not that type of dude.
Right.
So if I was in a Mercedes Benz, definitely wasn't mine. And if I'm in it, it's either I stole it and I'm not that type of dude, or it's somebody else's. And it was my brother's. And I used to just, my brothers and them had different cars. I come down her house in a Cadillac one day, Mercedes Benz, just to impress her, so that I can at least get some kind of attention from her. But when she talked about her brother though, I was hanging out with her brother on 40th and Burlage. Just some guys I used to hang out with, and do some, we used to hang out and things of that nature. And one day he tell me to take him to his house, and I said, all right. He said, let's stay right on 47th and Burlage. So I take him down. I said, you stay right here? And then Shanice comes out, and I'm like, who is that? He's like, that's my sister. The interesting thing, he tells me, stay away from her.
Shady.
The real. And she tells me, stay away from him. So it was interesting, and it was funny because they look a lot alike. So when I seen, I said, yeah, they definitely brother and sister. But I had been hanging out with him a whole summer and didn't even know that they were brother and sister.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, that was pretty cool though.
So that, I think it was actually, was it that summer or the next summer? I got pregnant with my oldest son, Devin. And so during that time, I pretty much talked to you the whole time on the phone, was it?
Another thing that you forget.
What?
That summer, we were pretty cool, and I had a decision on whether I was going to go to college or whether I was going to stay. At first, our relationship was just basically, from my perspective, I always had deep feelings for her. But from her perspective, we were just really good friends. But over that summer of just hanging out, you know what I mean, and talking every day, my feelings, even, grew more. But I think she kind of started liking me as a really good friend. And she didn't tell me not to go to school. She wanted me to go to school. But I had to make a decision. Was I going to go to school or was I going to try to pursue this relationship? My mom would have killed me if I wouldn't have went to school. And actually, to be honest, my brother bribed me to go to school. He told me he'll buy me a car if I go to school. So I couldn't let that go, So I end up going to school in September, I believe, of that year. Right in, it was just in Illinois, you know what I mean, and we actually talked up until then. I don't know how she felt about me going to school, but we didn't talk for a minute until I came back from I used to come back on the weekends and holidays and things of that nature, but we didn't talk like we were every day.
Yeah. So that was interesting. So when did our actual relationship even start?
When I came back from school, I used to come back and forth. When I came back, I had got a new car and I drove it by your house, of course, and things of that nature. But when I came back from school in '94, that's when you were pregnant, and you were probably 4 months, something like that, because you had Devin in December and I came back in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you can see, there's always one person who's very good with dates and timelines. That person is not me.
Yeah.
So you pursued a relationship with me that grew. I ended up getting pregnant with Donovan. He was born July 11th, 1999. We got married June 19th, 1999. And so June 19th, we got married, 99. July 1999, Donovan was born. And 1 year later, was it August or was it September?
What?
Of 2000.
Right.
1999, 2000. I remember this day, we had this minister coming to our house that his father recommended because his father is a pastor. So his father recommended that we get some quote unquote counseling.
Right.
And he recommended that a pastor and his wife come in and, counsel us because we haven't had that. Now, keeping in mind, both of us, we wasn't Christians or any of that kind of stuff. So I was open to it. I'm like, yeah, what can we do to make this work? And we had sat down, we had the counseling. Then the one day had come when the counselor said, when the man said, who was a pastor, I forgot their names too. But he was like, would you like to accept Christ? And then, I said, yeah. And he was like, because he had been counseling us all this time. And me, I wanted to live a different lifestyle than what I had seen in my family. They either went to jail, and I wanted to live differently from how I lived when I was in high school, being around, a lot of different negative images and things, considering that I had kids. Because one of the things when I had my first son, Devin, when I had my oldest son in 1994, I didn't want my life to look like the life of people that I have, or even the parenting style that I had grew up in, the household that I grew up in, or any of those things. So I wanted to be better. So I accepted Christ. And when he asked you, what did you say? You remember?
Probably didn't want to accept Christ at all.
No, you didn't. And that's what you told him. You was like, well, I know that I'm not going to play with God like that.
Right.
So I'm definitely not going to sit up here and, say a prayer that I don't believe in, that I'm not going to do.
For sure.
So it wasn't very long after that I'm like, where is he? I'm like, went down to the police station and reported a missing person because he didn't come home, which was not like him, And
it was Donovan's birthday party.
Well, it was after Donovan's birthday. It was a couple days after Donovan's birthday party.
But I was supposed to be there at Donovan's birthday party because you, Mary, and both of them were supposed to be there waiting on me, and I was supposed to. It wasn't his birthday, but it was the weekend of his birthday. Y'all had the party on his job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I went down to the police station because I'm like, okay, he MIA. Our baby just turned 1 year old. Devin at the time is 5 years old. And so I went to the police station, tried to report him as a missing person. They was like, ma'am, he on the books. He was arrested last night. And I'm like, scratch the record.
Yeah.
So from there, it was a pretty long road.
Yeah.
It was a long road of him being in prison, me being a single parent. The crazy thing is, though, before he was pretty much the breadwinner for our household, for our family. So, and that was just his responsibility.
Right.
I was considering going to school, hadn't made that decision yet. I had even turned down a job to work at, and it was a pretty good paying job for the phone company. And I had originally told them no. But because we had got into it, days prior, I was like, it was God telling me, you need to call him back because you don't know what that fool gonna do. Now, I do quote this in my book, One Mother and Two Sons, because that was my exact thought at the time. So I called them back and I said I accept the job. And actually that was it was well after Donovan's birthday, because in August was when you got into the accident with the car.
Not at all.
No?
I went to jail July 14th. If anybody been in prison, they know exactly the day they went to jail. I went to jail July 14th.
Oh, okay.
So it was 3 days after Donovan's birthday. For sure.
Okay. So again, I'm not the person who knows timelines.
Yeah.
To me, it's all a blur.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all a blur.
And we're rushing through a lot of the details, and I'm sure over the times we do these, just certain details is going to come up because you talking about a journey. To be at where we at today is definitely God's grace, but it was a journey.
Yeah, it was.
And a lot of things that happened, actually all the things that happened, I can say today, brought us up to the place we're at.
Yeah.
We always hear people say, if I can go back, I wouldn't change a thing. I say this, I can't go back. Things happen. I would like to have did things different, but I'm glad the things transpired the way they did because I really appreciate my life today. And I really appreciate the woman that I call my wife, and it's just things of that nature that as we continue to tell our story and as we continue to walk with you through this journey, you will see what we mean. We'll see what we mean about second chance, and how this second chance isn't something that we're just saying, okay, we got a new start over again. It's just saying, man, we have a second chance, babe.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's just great. And I'm just waiting to see how it actually unfolds. Nothing scripted. So we just talking,
Yeah. So like he said, though, it's been a long journey. We did not expect for him, to go, I didn't expect to be a single mom. And like for him to go to jail, and not only that, I mean, He didn't kill nobody. Yes, he did a crime. Yes. But it was very hard to hear that sentence and to hear that there was no way out of a 20-year sentence. Now, this is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. People, and even in other states, people, I mean, you know, people who done been to jail for manslaughter,
Yeah,
for murder,
for sure.
and it ain't been 20 years.
Yeah.
And so at the time, this was under truth in sentencing.
Oh,
And truth in sentencing in Wisconsin meant that you had to do all your time during those years. And there was no possibility to get that sentence lifted or maneuvered or anything.
right. For sure.
And so,
For sure. And like you say, you know, it was a strange situation because a person like me having no criminal background, you know, I had been in jail earlier as an adult, but that was in and out. So I didn't really have what they would call an extensive history. So to get a sentence like I had gotten it wasn't a normal, it was an anomaly. You know, we can blame the system, we can say this, but it wasn't something that they usually do. So it was shocking to me, but it was very hurtful. It took the life out of our relationship in many ways. But you know, thank God that we're here today.
yeah. So, you know, during that time, there are a lot of things that happened. One of the things that happened, you know, for years, me and the kids, we were able to, you know, go to the jail. I mean, these were long drives. These are 2-hour drives with 2 kids in the car, trying to, you know, make our relationship last and everything. And it's not that I didn't want to, but I mean, this was the only opportunity that we had to actually see each other. So it is a lot of responsibility to, you know, make it consistently. And one of the good things, though, that I will say about this, considering a lot of other women, I know a lot of other women carry the weight and the responsibility of sending their man money and put money on the phone and all this kind of stuff, and they man putting pressure on them. You need to come see me because you know, he wasn't that kind of person, and I wasn't that kind of woman. So I had none of that pressure. I never sent him money or anything like that, any of those kind of things, to put money on his books and canteen or any of that, because he knew the responsibility that I had. So he never asked me of those things. However, he did have a very supportive brother who pretty much took care of everything that relates to, you know, helping him in that way. And oftentimes his brother helped me. You know, when it came to the kids, or if I needed something financially, yeah. So that was that helped to lift that load a little bit and to help carry that burden of, you know, trying to build and because we only had 1 year together, basically.
Yeah.
We only had 1 year, and after that, he went to prison and was sentenced for 20 years. But during that time, we left Milwaukee, actually, and we moved to Nebraska. And during the time in Nebraska, I mean, pretty much Nebraska was like the wilderness. It was a total wilderness experience. If you read the Bible, that was a literal wilderness experience for us. And it was, you know, it was pretty rough. It was a lot of solitude, but a lot of time, it was just things that I didn't want to do any longer that caused me to end our relationship. And so I filed for a divorce to pretty much end the relationship. I told him I wanted out of it because it seemed like my prayers wasn't being answered. 2, it seemed like our relationship was going in circles. I was tired of it. What do I mean? I was tired of that kind of relationship that didn't seem real to me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting hearing her perspective of the whole thing. It's like she really have skipped through a lot of situations, you know, because I'm going to take you back a little bit. From 92 to 95, I really pursued you. Me and you really didn't start dating until 95. But in those moments, it created a hardness in me that I was willing to do not in a negative hardness, but I was willing to do anything to be in a relationship with this person because I felt that it was worth it. And actually, it prepared me for some of the harder stuff down the road. You know what I mean? Because we had a good friendship. At the end of the day, with them 3 years, she became my best friend. And because of that, a lot of the things that transpired in my life at the end of the day, I always, brothers and sisters are seemingly obligated to be there at times. You know what I mean? But a friend could leave. And really, no matter what was going on in my life or her life at a young age, I'm sure that we can both say this without thinking that we're making something up, that we had a good friendship. Because we stayed up nights. I'm talking about, I can remember falling asleep on the phone only to wake up and be like, because we had so much, she had so much, and she needed a friend. When I came back from school in 94, she really needed a friend. And I knew that, I didn't say, okay, this is my opportunity to be in a relationship with you. I said, man, she need a friend. You know what I mean? And I just really, really cultivated that relationship, and it prepared us for the journey of 20 years. And she didn't even know it. I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. I look at, like she said, I look at the details. You know what I mean? From 92 to 95. And then actually in 95, when we started dating, she probably don't even remember this. We only had dated 1 year before I went to jail. We dated 1 year. We had finally got into a real relationship for 1 year. I go to jail for 1 year. Yeah, so all of these things ring to me because I see the parallels. I see how all the time things was going, but they was coming together at the same time. Hindsight is 2020, so I can see that at the time I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was Shanice. Shanice would be there. Shanice would be there. So even the time I had the 1 year in jail, she was there. She was there as much as she could. We both young and I'm doing my life in jail for a year. She's writing me this and that. So our relationship even got stronger. So when I got out, we developed a relationship, and some things happened that kind of, we didn't just get married. Some things happened, and it was like forces was trying to tear us apart from day one of our relationship. But it was a strong sense of my love for her and her wanting to be loved that kind of kept bringing us together.
Yeah.
That kept bringing us together. So even though we didn't have a lot of time married together, we went through a lot of stuff together before I finally went to jail for 21 years, actually. You know what I mean? We had so much stuff that we had went through. I'm talking about so many things that we went through, good and bad, that about time we hit this monumental plateau of me having to do so much time. We didn't know, but we were strong. And Shanice was there for 12 years. 12 hard years in prison. Not only was I 2 hours away, I had went to Oklahoma. They sent me to Oklahoma. So for a whole year, I basically didn't even get a chance to visit with a wife that it was 2004. So we only been together for 5 years married. So it was just hard. It was so hard. And I knew that she was going through so much with raising 2 little boys that's growing to be young men, and a husband that's so far away, and her only friend. Her only friend in life took him from her. So it was so much pressure, and I understood that from my perspective. And I tried my best to be there as much as I could, but it's impossible to be present in a relationship when you're absent. You know what I mean? So as much as it hurt me in a personal sense, I knew that I had to let it go because it was causing me so much pain, knowing that I'm taking her through so much pain. And so it was something that just had to happen. But in the midst of that, it turned out that I needed to be my own person. You know, I had carried the dreams and the hopes of so many people all of my life, and pressure from every side, and things that I couldn't live up to because I really wasn't Sean. You know, so in a lot of sense, you know, the divorce, the separation, it forced me to say, you know what? Look in the mirror. You're no longer Shanice's husband. You're no longer your mother's baby boy. You're no longer this, that. You know, you have these still responsibilities, but now you got to face you. You know, and it was just some time for me to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, again, he's the one who has all the timelines. I don't. I just pretty much hit on bullet points and, you know, just go with the flow. Okay. Because this is strictly unscripted for us.
Sure.
We just telling our story, and that's the way we live our life. We pretty much just go with the flow. So thanks for being a part of our flow. So any other things that you want to mention though that we that were key points in that, you know, during that timeline to where during those 21 years, I would say?
Before that, two key points that I would like to mention was Devin and Donovan. Devin actually, his birth actually brought us closer together because we talked a lot, but when he was born, Shanice changed her life and she stopped doing a lot of the things that she was doing, and I so much admired that because I seen the mother, what it means to be a mother that cares for a son or just a child, that she was willing, like she said, she wanted to give him a better life than she ever lived, and I seen that. But I also seen a girl had a baby and needed help. So I didn't try to come in and be this young man's dad, but I wanted to be everything that she needed when she needed. So it was like that relationship, you know, Devin's relationship made our relationship stronger. You know, it really did.
And that's very true because at the time, my oldest son, which is Devin, his father wasn't his father was a drug dealer. He was still trying to be on the scene or whatever, and me and Devin's father, my oldest son, didn't have a good relationship in that way. So the person who was there for Devin ever since Devin was born was Sean. You know, Sean would pick him, you know, if I needed to go to an appointment, do whatever, Sean would be the one to help him get in the car seat, you know, help put him in the car seat, load everything into the car. He was pretty much, you know, again, he was a really good friend at the time. And from there became, you know, more than a friend because Devin was born in December 1994. And like you said, in 95, we started dating. So Devin was the person who brought us together.
Yeah.
And so,
and the other person I was going to say was Donovan, because when we was when we was pregnant with Donovan, I went through all the motions with her, but I was really at a dark place in my life and I didn't know what to do. But when I saw Donovan, it didn't change me in the sense that I turned around and started making better decisions, but it gave me a sense of life. It gave me like, man, this is what we done created. So no matter what was going on between us, I said, man, I have a son with this woman. Not that Devin wasn't a son, but it was a new life.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, man. So our sons, from my perspective, were two instruments of God's grace that help us to stay together. Because I'm telling you, had not been for Devin or Donovan, we wouldn't have been together.
Yeah, and that's very true. And that, you know, as a single parent, as a single mother, I know what my childhood was like. It wasn't a very favorable or happy or joyous childhood. It was not. You know, I'm the oldest sibling out of 4 brothers, but I was very much rejected. You know, I was very much abandoned in the sense that I was sent to live with my grandmother for my own protection, being the only girl. But at the same time, I didn't have that mother figure in my life. So when I had Devin being the oldest, I had to change my life around, change my surroundings. No more club, no more this or that. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. I just tried not to do any more of that. Even though there were some times that I still went to the club and I, every now and then, but it was nothing like, and even some of the people that I hung out with, I even remember telling, and one of my friends would call me. I remember that time you called me, it was like, your life going in this direction, my life going in that direction. We not gonna be friends no more. Okay. So I'm just gonna say goodbye. And I did that to a lot of the friends that I was hanging with because they wasn't doing nothing.
Right.
Their life was still, I had one friend who she just smoked weed. That's all she did. And she even had a kid. So at the same time, I just cut a lot of those relationships off because I wanted, again, my life to look different from the life that I seen throughout my, childhood. And then when I had Donovan, I'm like, no. So when I had Donovan in '99, I was like, I'm willing to get rid of everything because it was a lot of chaos. It was a lot of drama with his family.
Yep.
Because they mad because I done married baby boy and baby boy was like 27 years old. How old was you?
I was 24.
24 years old. Oh, she done married baby boy. We wanna
But
fight.
I was definitely a spoiled brat though. So
Yeah.
even though I was 24, it was like I was 15.
Even though he had his own kid.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of drama at the time. So I wanted to focus on, one, my relationship with Christ. Because again, when the minister came to our house, he asked me if I wanted to give my life to Christ. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I was willing to sacrifice everything, get rid of everything, don't read, don't look at, don't do, don't dress, all that stuff. I'm like, I need to have a better life for my kids. Because I'm like, all this hell out here, I don't want no parts of. And I don't want me and my children to experience that kind of hell. Some people just have hellish lives, okay? Right. And some people say they want to get out of their hellish lives, but at the same time, they living in hell every single day. Yeah. And they enjoy watching other people's hell every single day and being a part of other people's hell. So I didn't want that. I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted them to grow up in an environment, one, that they felt safe. Safety is a very important thing to me. And when kids don't feel safe, that's the worst thing. When kids are not taken care of, that's one of the worst things for me. So I wanted to provide that kind of safety and nurturing environment to that degree for my sons. So especially when I was the only thing that they had. I was the only thing that they had. So again, it was, 94, I changed my life. 99 changed my life again. Then when he went to prison in 2000, changed my life even more.
Yeah. And my life is totally opposite. All the things that she wanted for her life and her kids' life, I had in my life. I was pretty much sheltered most of my life. Fortunate, especially in our day and age and in our culture, to have my dad and my mom together. They had been married for 54 years, I believe. So I was very blessed coming up. You know what I mean? We weren't the richest, but we definitely weren't the poorest. So I had a lot of things that a lot of people wasn't afforded. But the desire to jump off the porch and get in the streets, I wanted to do that. I wanted to see all these things, be and do all the things that I seen other kids doing and seen on TV. And I wanted to experience a buck wild life of this, and that. A life that she had been struggling through since she was a kid. You know what I mean? So when she changed her life in '94, I was changing my life, not for the better. So it was like she was going in a different way, coming out of the mess that I was going into. So now I'm out in the streets, shouldn't be out in the streets. Like I just said, I left college to go out in the streets. I didn't even have to do that. You know what I mean? Trying to experience selling drugs, end up in prison right away. I'm like, I wasn't a street guy. You know what I mean? And she knew that. She knew that I wasn't a street guy. It's probably one of the things that attracted her to me, because she probably figured at least this dude would be alive, But as soon as she decided to commit to me, I just turned my back and go right to the streets, a lifestyle that she was terrified of losing me too, I'm sure. You know what I mean? So even though she didn't lose me to death through it, she lost me to prison, and she lost me to this lifestyle. So I definitely understand, and we just went to two different directions, but at the same time, it seemed to bring us right back together. You know, our experiences were our experience. So when as I sit here listening to it, the lifestyle that she wanted, I didn't want. I didn't want God. I have been hearing God all my life. You know what I mean? I didn't want stability, even though that sounds crazy. I wanted chaos. I wanted to be out here in the streets. I wanted to experience that. And she already knew what that life would lead us. So this is why, you know, just sitting here talking, I could see just like, man, you know what I mean? And just things of that nature, you know, and man, we still here. We smiling, we in love, you know, deeply in that. But our stories is really deep because she have her own perspective and story, and I have my own. But no matter what, we were still being brought together. It's like the back of a picture. You see the back of the tapestry, and it looked like a bunch of mess. But when you turn it around, you see a beautiful picture. And that's how our life was. Like, I don't know how these people gonna be together, and I don't know she going here, he going there. But look at what we sitting here today.
So now, what I pretty much, you know, during his time, you know, in prison, it was it wasn't even a couple days though that you were in jail and you had like an encounter. What happened?
You know, I'm in the county jail, still don't want God. You know what I mean? My going to jail experience, one day tell it in a deeper sense, but it was a suicide by running away from everything. You know, I just wasn't, I made a conscious choice never to come home, never to be a dad or a husband or this. I just gave up on life. So when I went to jail, I wasn't seeking God. I didn't have a county jail religious experience, hoping and praying that if God saved me, that He'd there was none of that. It was her. It was her. I knew a woman who accepted God. Like, let me say this first. My mom and dad had been, I don't know, pastors all my life I can remember. So I didn't really see much of a 360 change. They tell you, of course everybody can tell you their story. They used to be this, and this. But her, I think the 180. I said, I knew who this woman was, and there's something about her relationship with this so-called God. And she would come down, and I was trying to push her all my life. I didn't want her to go through what I was about, but she wouldn't. She would kept saying that God this and God that and God this, and I would be like, I'm not trying to hear that. I don't want to hear that. You know, and I was mean to her. I was really mean to her and the kids, but she didn't give up on me, even though I wanted her to give up on me. So within a matter of a month and a half, you know, I just said, you know what, if this for real stuff, for real with her, maybe it can at least give me some kind of joy and peace or something in my life, because it's all dark right at this point. Yeah. It's all dark at this point. And even though she was going through what I was going through, she had light. She had hope. I didn't. Yeah. So it was something about her coming to the jail, talking to me, wanting to have a relationship with a guy who was not, I wasn't facing 20 years. I was facing, if you add the numbers up, 100 years. But she didn't care. She believed that I was her husband, that she loved me and this. And I'm like, how could she do this? She doesn't need to do this. I don't even want her to do that. So it was just her. It was within a matter of months, her true commitment of love to me made me seek that type of love. And it was in Christ.
Yeah. So during, you know, that time, even during that 12 years, you know, that's what we both individually, you know, pretty much committed our life to, you know, living a life that was, as, you know, we would say in church or in Christendom, living a life that's pleasing to Christ, living a life that's pleasing to God. That's definitely, don't stop the tape, don't stop the video. That's definitely not a term that I would use right now. That's not the verbiage that we would use today. Right. But we took some time and yeah, we worked on our relationship with God. I pretty much instilled a lot of Christian values and doctrine into my sons. That was, pretty rigorous at the time. Thank God they lived through it. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's what, can we call this part one? We'll call this part one of our second chance at love.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today, and we'll get to part two.